The skies above Earth were no longer blue. They were filled with shadows, massive alien warships that hung in orbit like predators circling wounded prey. Their metallic hulls glowed with strange symbols, and their weapons pointed downward, ready to erase entire cities in a single breath. For the people of Earth, the invasion had been a nightmare without end. It began with whispers in the dark corners of space, colonies suddenly cut off, entire mining outposts falling silent. At first, no one wanted to believe it. Humanity had spread far enough among the stars to feel confident, even proud. But that pride was shattered when the first alien fleets arrived. They came not as explorers, not as diplomats, but as conquerors. World after world was burned. Human fleets tried to resist, but their technology was years, no centuries, behind. Battles became massacres. Colonies became graveyards. Hope became a fragile thing, slipping through desperate fingers like sand. Now Earth itself was surrounded. From every screen and broadcast, people could see the alien armada blotting out the sun. It was not one species but many, united under the Galactic Council, a coalition of empires that had ruled the stars long before humans learned to walk upright. To them, humanity was nothing but a mistake, a dangerous young race that grew too fast and too wild. And mistakes in their eyes had to be corrected. In the council chambers far from Earth, alien voices spoke with cold certainty. The Terrans are cornered. Their fleets are gone. Their colonies are ash. One push more and they will break. To the council it was already decided. Humanity's chapter was ending. But down on the planet, under the heavy shadow of those ships, people were not silent. In underground shelters, families clung to one another, whispering words of comfort they did not believe. In ruined cities, survivors dug through rubble, searching for loved ones. Soldiers stared at the sky, weapons shaking in their hands, knowing that their fight would not be enough. And in the hidden war bunkers of Earth's military, leaders gathered around glowing maps, their faces pale but their eyes hard. General Kira Holt stood among them, her uniform torn, her hands scarred, her heart heavy. She had seen too much. Entire battalions lost, fleets reduced to debris, children pulled from burning homes. Yet she did not let her voice break. "They think we are finished," she said quietly. "They think we will kneel." Her words cut through the silence of the room. For a moment, no one answered. The officers around her shifted uneasily, their faces showing both exhaustion and despair. They had all felt it, the crushing weight of inevitability. What could Earth possibly do against thousands of ships, each larger and stronger than their own? But Holt's voice grew stronger. "They don't understand us. They don't understand what it means to be human when there is nothing left but survival. They believe we are trapped. But cornered prey does not beg. Cornered prey fights." Her words carried a fire the aliens had not seen, the kind of fire that did not come from numbers or weapons, but from something deeper. Yet even with that fire, doubt lingered. Everyone in the room knew the truth. Humanity's defenses were broken. The colonies were gone. Earth was alone. Still, Holt turned her gaze to the massive sealed doors at the far end of the chamber. Behind those doors lay Earth's last secret, something built not for exploration, not for defense, but for survival. It was a weapon hidden for years, a gamble of engineering and desperation, a ship unlike any other. Few had ever seen it. Most believed it was just a rumor, a whispered story told to give soldiers a reason to keep fighting. But Holt knew better. She had walked its halls. She had heard the hum of its heart. It was humanity's last card, and the aliens had no idea it existed. Outside, in the blackness of space, alien fleets moved into formation. The Council's flagship glowed with the energy of its weapons, preparing for the final strike. The order was given. The Terrans would be erased in one decisive blow. On Earth, people waited, holding their breath. Some prayed. Some cursed. Some closed their eyes, unable to watch. And deep underground in the silence before the storm, the warship slept. But it would not sleep much longer. The ground shook as bombs rained down on Earth. Entire cities trembled with each strike from orbit, and fires lit the horizon in every direction. People huddled in bunkers, their hearts pounding as if each explosion struck their own chest. It felt as though the end had already come. General Kira Holt stood inside the command bunker. Surrounded by screens showing the devastation, she watched buildings collapse into clouds of dust. She saw oceans boil under plasma fire. She saw families running, screaming, scattering like ants beneath the shadow of giants. Her throat tightened, but she forced herself to keep watching. She could not look away, not when she carried the weight of every life on her shoulders. One of her officers, a young man with soot across his face, turned toward her. His eyes were wide, desperate. "General, our defense lines are gone. The orbital cannons are destroyed. We can't hold them back anymore." Holt's hands clenched behind her back. She had expected this. She had known this moment would come. But hearing the words spoken out loud was still like a blade through her chest. "How long before they breach?" she asked quietly. "Minutes," the officer whispered. His voice broke on the word. Silence filled the command chamber. Every officer knew what minutes meant. It meant no more defenses, no more chances. It meant Earth itself was about to be cut open, its people slaughtered until nothing remained but ash. The aliens believed humanity had no way out. They believed this war was finished, but Holt had been keeping a secret. One buried deep. One she had waited to use until this very moment. She turned slowly to face her officers, her eyes burning with the kind of determination that comes when everything else has been stripped away. "There is one chance left," she said. Her voice was calm, but the words carried like thunder. "One ship, one weapon. It was never meant to be used this soon, but we don't get to choose our timing." Her officers looked at one another, confused. Some frowned. Some whispered in disbelief. One of them, Colonel Rivas, shook his head. "You can't mean the Aegis? That thing isn't ready. It's experimental, unstable. It's alive," Holt cut him off. "And it's waiting." The room went still. Everyone knew the rumors. A ship hidden deep beneath the earth, built in secret, forged from the last scraps of human innovation. Some had dismissed it as a fairy tale, a myth to keep morale alive. Others had believed, but only in silence. Now Holt had spoken the name aloud. The Aegis, it was not a myth. It was real, and it was humanity's last hope. The officers stared at her, torn between fear and hope. One finally spoke, his voice trembling. "Even if it works, General, it's only one ship against an entire armada." Holt's lips pressed into a thin line. She thought of the alien fleets above, vast and endless. She thought of the Galactic Council, so sure of their victory. And she thought of her people, scattered, bleeding, afraid, but still alive. "One ship," she said firmly, "can be enough. One flame is enough to light the darkness. One strike is enough to remind them we are not prey." Her voice carried a strength that made even the most doubtful officer sit straighter. For a moment, no one spoke. Then slowly the room began to move. Officers started barking orders. Technicians scrambled to terminals. The silence of despair was replaced by the rhythm of purpose. The Aegis would wake. Deep beneath the Earth's crust, hidden inside caverns of steel, the massive warship waited. It had never seen the sky, never felt the cold of space. Its engines were silent, its weapons asleep. But inside its heart, power waited to be unleashed. The Aegis was more than just a ship. It was everything humanity had left. Every scrap of stolen alien tech, every breakthrough, every desperate invention had been woven into its frame. It was not beautiful. It was not graceful. It was raw, sharp, brutal, just like the people who had built it. And soon, it would rise. As alarms blared and launch codes were prepared, Holt stood at the center of it all, her hands steady, her voice unshaken. She knew the risks. She knew the Aegis could fail, could burn itself apart before even leaving the ground. She knew the odds were still against them, but she also knew something the aliens did not. Humanity's strength was never in its numbers or its weapons. It was in the fire of its will, the refusal to break even when cornered. She whispered to herself, too quiet for anyone else to hear. They think this is the end. They don't know us at all. Above Earth, the alien armada moved into position, preparing for the final strike. To them, this was the last chapter. Humanity was finished. But far below, in the darkness of the Earth, engines began to hum. The ground trembled. Dust fell from the ceilings. A sound like thunder echoed through the cavern. The Aegis was waking. And when it rose, the galaxy would remember the day humanity refused to die. The world shook as if the Earth itself was preparing to rise. Far beneath the surface, hidden in colossal caverns carved over decades, the warship waited. It had been built in silence, away from the eyes of the galaxy, forged in desperation and hope. For years it had slept, its massive frame gathering dust, its engines quiet. But now, with humanity on the edge of extinction, it was time to awaken. The Aegis. It was not just a ship. It was a promise. A vow that even if the stars turned against them, humanity would not kneel. Engines began to hum, deep and thunderous. Sparks danced along its hull as power surged through systems long dormant. Lights flickered to life across its armored body. The cavern filled with sound. Metal groaning, reactors roaring, echoes rolling like thunder through the underground halls. On the command deck, General Kira Holt stood tall. Her eyes scanned the screens, showing system after system coming online. Her crew worked feverishly, hands flying across consoles, voices urgent but steady. Primary engines, active, weapons grid, online. Shields charging. Every word was a heartbeat, every status report a breath of life. The Aegis was no longer sleeping. It was alive. Above, on the broken surface of Earth, civilians could feel it too. The ground trembled. Cracks split across streets. Dust rained from shattered buildings. Refugees, soldiers, and children lifted their eyes to the sky, fear and confusion mixing in their hearts. And then they saw it. The Earth split open, and fire poured from the wound as the Aegis rose. It was enormous, larger than any human vessel ever built. Its hull black and sharp like a blade forged for war. Its engines blazed with power, tearing through stone and smoke as it climbed higher, higher until it broke through the surface. The people below gasped. Some wept, some cheered. In that moment they saw something they had thought was gone. Hope. For so long they had lived under shadows, powerless as alien ships blotted out their sky. But now, rising from the heart of their world, was a shadow of their own. A warship meant not to defend, not to flee, but to fight. The Aegis tore into the atmosphere, breaking through clouds, its hull glowing red from heat. Lightning flashed around it as if the sky itself was bowing to its arrival. When it broke free into space, the alien armada finally saw it, and they laughed. Across alien channels, voices filled with contempt. One ship? This is their answer? Primitive, weak. It will be ashes in minutes. Thousands of alien vessels turned their weapons on it. Beams of plasma, swarms of missiles, streaks of energy lit the void. The sky became fire. On the Aegis, alarms blared. Shields flared under the assault, energy crackling across its hull. The crew gritted their teeth, holding their ground. General Holt's voice was steady, unbroken. Target their nearest cruiser, fire, the Aegis answered. Its cannons roared, unleashing a torrent of energy unlike anything humanity had ever fired before. The shot tore through the void, slamming into the alien cruiser. For a heartbeat, the ship seemed untouched. Then its shields shattered. Its hull cracked, and in a blinding flash the cruiser exploded. Silence fell across alien comms. Another order. Another blast. Another alien ship shattered. The laughter stopped. On Earth, people watching from bunkers and ruined cities screamed with joy. Children cheered. Soldiers cried. For the first time in this long war, they saw alien ships die under human fire. The aliens had thought humanity was finished. They had thought this would be a final slaughter. But one ship had risen, and with it rose the spirit of an entire world. The Aegis moved through the void like a predator among prey. Its engines thundered. Its weapons spat fire. For every beam that struck it, it answered with destruction. Alien ships burned, their wreckage scattering across the black sky. On the command deck, Holt's eyes burned with determination. She knew the truth. The odds had not changed. One ship could not fight forever against thousands. But it didn't need to fight forever. It only needed to show the galaxy that humanity would not go quietly. Around the Aegis, alien fleets regrouped, panic creeping into their voices. It should not exist.
How do they have such a weapon?
Destroy it before it reaches the flagship. But the Aegis pressed on, tearing deeper into their formation. From the ground, people stared at the sky where flashes of battle lit the heavens. To them, it was not just a ship. It was a beacon, burning brighter than the fear that had chained them for years. And as the Aegis carved its path through the armada, a single truth spread across Earth like fire. Humanity was not finished. The galaxy had miscalculated, the prey had built its own predator, and now, the hunt had begun. The void above Earth was no longer silent, where once alien fleets drifted like hunters over helpless prey. Now fire and thunder filled the sky. The Aegis, humanity's last warship, cut through the darkness like a blade. Its engines blazed, its cannons roared, and with every strike, the impossible became real. Alien ships were falling. From the ground, people could see the flashes of battle high above. Each explosion painted the night sky with light, and each one sent a shiver of hope through those who had nearly forgotten what hope felt like. Children pointed upward, their eyes wide. Soldiers clutched their weapons tighter, their hearts beating stronger. For the first time in years, the people of Earth were not only surviving, they were fighting back. On the command deck of the Aegis, chaos and discipline lived side by side. Alarms screamed. Sparks flew from overloaded panels. Officers shouted reports across the bridge, their voices sharp with urgency. Enemy cruisers closing in from starboard. Shields holding at 70%. Forward batteries recharging. Through it all, General Kira Holt stood firm. She gripped the rail at the center of the deck, her eyes fixed on the sea of red markers filling the tactical display. She knew the truth. They were surrounded, outnumbered 1,000 to 1, yet her voice carried no fear. Target their flagships, she ordered. Cut the head off the snake. Make them feel us, the crew obeyed. The Aegis turned, its weapons locking onto a towering alien battleship. The enemy vessel dwarfed even the mightiest ships humanity had ever built. Its shields shimmered like liquid light, a fortress in the stars. The Aegis fired. The core cannons unleashed a beam of pure energy, bright enough to blind, powerful enough to split steel. The alien flagship's shields flared, cracked, and then shattered. The beam tore straight through, ripping the ship in half. The explosion rippled across the void, shockwaves rocking nearby cruisers. On alien comms, voices screamed in disbelief. Impossible! That ship cannot exist. Fall back. Hold the line. But there was no line strong enough. The Aegis moved like fury itself. Missile bays opened, flooding the void with streaks of fire. Railguns thundered, tearing apart destroyers. Plasma lances burned holes through alien armor. Wreckage drifted in every direction. Pieces of once unstoppable fleets, now nothing but fire and dust. Still, the enemy pressed on. Dozens of ships closed in, their weapons locking onto the lone human warship. Beams of light and storms of plasma rained down. The Aegis trembled under the assault. Shields flickered. Hull plating scorched. Whole sections of the ship went dark. Shields at 40%, a technician cried. We can't take much more of this. But Holt's eyes never wavered. Her voice rang clear. Then we take them down before they take us. Fire everything we have, the Aegis answered with fury. Every cannon, every missile, every ounce of power was unleashed. The void itself seemed to scream as alien ships shattered one after another. Below, on Earth, civilians watched in awe. To them, each explosion was more than a battle won. It was proof that their world was not yet broken. Tears filled eyes. Voices rose in cheers. In the ruins of cities, in the cold of bunkers, humanity felt alive again. But the cost was heavy. Inside the ship, corridors filled with smoke. Engineers fought to keep systems alive. Their hands burned and bloodied. Medical teams dragged the wounded from collapsing sections. Every victory came with sacrifice. General Holt knew it. She felt the weight of every life lost. But she also knew this. The aliens had made a mistake. They thought humanity's desperation was weakness. They thought cornering humans would break them. They were wrong. Desperation was not weakness. It was fire. And that fire burned hotter than anything the galaxy had ever seen. As the battle raged, panic spread through alien fleets. Commanders shouted orders that went unanswered. Ships collided in the chaos. Fear twisted their voices as they realized what had entered their skies. This is no ordinary ship. It is a weapon. Retreat! Protect the Council's command fleet. The Aegis pushed forward deeper into the Armada, carving a path toward the enemy's heart. Its hull bore scars. Its shields faltered, but still it fought. On the bridge, Holt's crew looked to her, their faces pale but their eyes burning with the same fire. She met their gaze, her voice steady. They thought we were cornered, she said. They thought we would bow. Let's show them what humans do when there's no way out. And with those words, the Aegis surged again, tearing into the enemy with the strength of an entire world. The clash was far from over. But in that moment, across Earth and among the stars, one truth became undeniable. Humanity was not prey. Humanity was a storm, and the storm had just begun. The battle above Earth raged like a storm without end. The void burned with fire, debris, and screams carried over comms. The Aegis fought with the fury of an entire species, but the alien fleets were endless. For every battleship destroyed, 10 more surged forward. For every explosion, another wall of enemy fire answered. On the ground, people continued to watch the sky. Some prayed. Some shouted. Some simply stared, unable to blink as flashes of light lit the heavens. They knew the ship above was their last shield, their last chance. If the Aegis fell, Earth would fall with it. Inside the command deck, exhaustion was beginning to show. Faces were pale, hands trembled, sweat poured down uniforms, but no one stopped. Shields at 20%. Main reactor overheating. We can't sustain another core blast. Port side batteries offline. Every report struck like a dagger, but General Kira Holt refused to flinch. She stood tall, gripping the rail, her voice cutting through the chaos. Hold steady. Focus fire on their carriers. If we take them out, their fighter swarms lose direction. The crew obeyed, their faith in her stronger than their fear. The Aegis turned, its weapons roaring once again. A carrier ship exploded in a blaze, sending alien fighters spinning out of control. For a moment, victory shimmered in the darkness. But then the counterattack came. Dozens of alien destroyers swarmed, their guns tearing into the Aegis. The ship groaned, metal twisting under the impact. Hull plating melted, bulkheads collapsed, sirens wailed across the decks. In the engineering bay, smoke and fire filled the air. Men and women struggled against sparking panels, sealing ruptures with their bare hands. One shouted into the comms, voice breaking, "General, we've lost secondary power grids." "If this keeps up, do what you can," Holt replied firmly. "Keep her alive. That's all I ask." Everywhere on the ship, the same story repeated. Sacrifice. Medics dragged wounded crew through burning corridors. Gunners fired until their hands bled. Engineers gave their last strength to keep systems alive. Each life lost became another stone on Holt's heart. But still she stood. Still she fought. The aliens pressed harder, sensing weakness. Their voices carried across channels filled with venom and disbelief. "It cannot last much longer. Their shields are failing. Finish them." Holt listened to those words, but instead of fear, something else burned in her chest. Rage. The same rage she had felt when colonies were destroyed, when soldiers were slaughtered, when families were erased like they meant nothing. She would not let Earth be erased the same way. She turned to her weapons officer. Line up the dreadnought. Give it everything we have. The Aegis unleashed its fury. The beam struck true, ripping through the enemy dreadnought's core. The explosion lit the void like a dying sun. Shockwaves scattering nearby ships. Cheers erupted across the Aegis. For a heartbeat, hope surged again. But then reality returned. Shields at 5%. We've lost starboard engines. Reactor containment failing. General, we can't keep this up. The bridge shook violently. Consoles sparked. A crewman was thrown to the floor motionless. Holt's jaw tightened, but she did not allow her voice to falter. Listen to me, she said, her tone carrying across the bridge. They think we are finished. They think this is our last breath. But we are not done, not yet. If this ship burns, it burns taking them with it. Her words spread like fire. Faces that had been pale with fear now hardened with resolve. They knew what she meant. The Aegis might not survive this battle, but as long as it stood, humanity's spirit would not die. Outside, the alien armada shifted, tightening its grip. More ships converged, their guns aimed at the lone human vessel. The void was alive with enemy fire brighter than 1,000 storms. The Aegis shook again, shields finally collapsing in a burst of light. The hull was bare now, open to every strike. Alarm screamed across the ship. On Earth, people watched in horror. They saw the shield's glow vanish. They saw the ship surrounded by fire. And for a terrible moment it seemed as though the last hope of humanity was about to fall. But still the Aegis fought. Its guns blazed, its engines burned, its crew refused to yield. Every shot was defiance. Every strike was a message. The galaxy had cornered humanity. It had declared them finished. Yet even at the breaking point, the humans refused to break. In the darkest moment, under the heaviest fire, the Aegis burned brighter, and every man, woman, and child who looked up from the dying Earth knew this truth. They were not watching the end. They were watching the beginning of something the galaxy would never forget. The Aegis floated like a wounded beast among the stars. Its hull was scarred, broken and burning. Entire decks were dark. Whole sections of the ship had been lost to fire and vacuum. Yet somehow it still fought. The crew clung to their stations, refusing to surrender. Every person on board knew what was at stake. If they stopped, Earth would be gone. Humanity would be forgotten. General Kira Holt stood on the bridge, surrounded by smoke and sparks. Her hands trembled from exhaustion, but her eyes were sharp. She stared at the tactical display where the alien fleet swarmed, their numbers still overwhelming. They won't stop, her weapons officer whispered. Even if we destroy 10 more, 100 will take their place. Holt's voice was steady, even as her heart felt heavy. Then we don't aim for 100. We aim for the heart. The heart was clear. At the center of the alien formation was their command ship, a massive fortress bristling with weapons. It pulsed with strange energy, controlling the fleet like a brain controls the body. If it fell, the swarm would break, but reaching it meant diving through a storm of fire. It was suicide. The crew looked at Holt, fear in their eyes. She saw their doubt, but she also saw their resolve. They were tired, broken and bleeding, but they had followed her this far. They would follow her into the fire. Helm, Holt ordered. Set a course straight into their command ship. The helmsman froze for a moment. Then, with shaking hands, he obeyed. The Aegis turned, engines roaring, heading into the heart of the alien fleet. The aliens saw the move and reacted instantly. Enemy ships swarmed to block the path, weapons firing in blinding waves. Explosions shook the Aegis as enemy fire tore into its hull. On Earth, people saw the Aegis turn. They saw it charging into the swarm like a lone spear. Hope and fear battled in their hearts. Some cried, some prayed, some screamed. All they could do was watch. Inside the Aegis, the crew fought with the last of their strength. Starboard cannons offline. Shields gone. We've lost life support on Deck 6. Keep going, Holt shouted. Don't stop. The ship groaned, but it obeyed. Guns fired, cutting through enemy destroyers. Missiles streaked into the void, opening a bloody path forward. But for every enemy ship destroyed, more appeared. In the engineering bay, Chief Ramos struggled with the reactor controls. The core was overheating seconds from collapse. He knew what Holt was planning. One last strike, one final sacrifice. He opened a private channel to the bridge. "General, if you do this, the ship won't survive." "I know," Holt replied softly. Her voice carried no fear, only resolve. "But if we don't, humanity won't survive either." Ramos swallowed hard. He looked around at his engineers, faces dirty and bloodied, but still working. "Then we'll make sure you get the power you need," he said. All the way to the end. The Aegis pressed deeper. Enemy fire rained down, tearing chunks from its body. Fire spread across the decks. Hull breaches sucked lives into the void. Still, the ship advanced. Finally, the alien command ship came into view, an enormous dark fortress glowing with sickly light. Its weapons turned, preparing to erase the Aegis with a single blow. "Target their core," Holt commanded. Her voice was quiet, but it carried through the chaos. "All weapons. Everything we have," the crew obeyed. Every last missile, every cannon, every beam lined up on the command ship. The alien fleet seemed to sense what was coming. They screamed over the comms. "Stop them! Destroy them!" Ships rushed in from all sides, but the Aegis fired with fury. Explosions lit the void. Enemy ships shattered. The Aegis tore its way forward, bleeding fire and smoke until it was face to face with the command ship. "Core ready," Ramos shouted from engineering. "But once we release it, there's no coming back." Holt closed her eyes for a second. In that moment, she saw Earth. She saw the faces of people watching, the children, the families, the soldiers who had fallen. She thought of all the laughter, all the love, all the fragile beauty of her species. And she knew this was worth everything. "Do it," she whispered. The Aegis unleashed its final strike. The reactor core flared brighter than a sun, channeling its energy into one massive beam. It pierced through the alien command ship, ripping it apart from within. The fortress shuddered, its glow collapsing. A chain of explosions spread across its surface until the entire ship erupted in a storm of fire. For a moment, the galaxy was silent. The alien fleet wavered, their formations breaking, their screams of command falling into chaos. The Aegis had done it, but the victory came at a cost. The ship was falling apart. Systems failed one by one. Fires consumed what was left. The hull was cracked open to the stars. Holt stood on the bridge watching the alien command ship die, knowing her own ship would soon follow. Around her, her crew held their heads high. Some smiled. Some cried. None regretted their choice. Through the comms, Earth's people saw the explosion in the sky. They saw the Aegis burning but victorious, and in that moment despair turned to hope. Humanity had not been erased, humanity had fought back, and in their darkest hour, they had lit a fire so bright that the galaxy itself would never forget. The sky above Earth was no longer filled with shadows. The alien fleet had scattered, broken by the fall of their command ship. Where once thousands of enemy vessels had hung in perfect formation, now only wreckage drifted, glowing faintly against the stars. The fire of battle still burned in orbit, but its fury was gone. On the surface, humanity watched in stunned silence. For hours they had lived in fear, waiting for the end. They had seen the Aegis rise, burning and scarred, charging into the swarm like a defiant flame. And now they saw the impossible. The alien fortress torn apart, their enemies fleeing. In homes and shelters, in ruined streets and bunkers, people wept. Some laughed with disbelief, clutching each other as if afraid it was a dream. Others cried openly, tears falling from eyes that had been dry for too long. It was not just relief. It was something deeper. It was hope. On the bridge of the Aegis, alarm still screamed. The great ship was dying. Its reactor had given everything, its body torn beyond repair. Fires spread unchecked. Hull plates split open. Air vented into the void. General Kira Holt stood at the center. her face lit by the last flickering lights of the ship. Around her, the crew held their positions, refusing to abandon their posts. Their eyes were tired, but their hearts were full. "We did it," whispered the weapons officer, his voice breaking. "We actually did it." Holt gave a small nod. She looked out the cracked viewport, watching the alien command ship break apart into burning fragments. She thought of the billions of eyes watching from Earth. She thought of how this moment would be remembered, not as the day humanity was erased, but the day it stood tall. "Transmit this to Earth," Holt ordered softly. "Let them know the Aegis held the line." The comm officer worked quickly, sending the message through damaged systems. A final broadcast carried across the planet. "This is the Aegis. The enemy flagship is destroyed. Earth still stands." The message spread like wildfire. Across cities, camps, and shelters, people screamed and cheered. Children hugged their parents. Soldiers dropped to their knees in exhaustion. Strangers embraced one another in the streets. Humanity had been on the edge of despair, and in one moment the edge was gone. In the council chambers far away, panic erupted. The alien leaders who once spoke with certainty now shouted in fear. How could a single Terran ship do this? How could a species so young, so fragile, defy the will of the council? If one ship could burn their flagship, what would 1,000 do? And in that fear, seeds of doubt were planted. The galaxy had seen humanity's defiance. Whispers spread among other species. Whispers that perhaps the humans were not weak but something more. Something dangerous. Something unstoppable. Back on the Aegis, the end came slowly. Systems failed one by one. The ship's engines flickered and went dark. The gravity plates shut down, leaving the crew floating weightless in smoke and debris. Chief Ramos called up from engineering, his voice tired but calm. "Reactor's gone. She won't hold together much longer." Holt closed her eyes, breathing deeply. She felt no fear. She had done her duty. Her people were safe for now. That was enough. To her crew she said, "We lit a fire today. Even if we fall, that fire will spread. Humanity will rise again." There was silence for a moment. Then one by one voices answered her. "Yes, General. With you till the end." For Earth. The Aegis shuddered, its hull cracking apart. Flames licked the edges of the bridge. Holt stood tall, her gaze fixed on Earth below. She thought of its oceans, its forests, its laughter, its storms. She thought of home. When the final explosion came, it was bright and terrible, a second star blooming against the night. The Aegis was gone, but its death was not in vain. It was a signal, a cry, a spark that would not die. On Earth, the people saw that star. They did not see it as a death. They saw it as a promise. Children pointed at the sky and said, "That was us." Mothers whispered to their children, "We are not finished." Soldiers raised their weapons and swore, "We will fight." The aliens had thought humanity cornered. They thought Earth would bow, break, and vanish. But they were wrong, because humanity was not finished. Humanity was just beginning. And across the stars, in every corner of the galaxy, the name of the Aegis was carried on frightened whispers. A single ship had torn the sky apart. A single act of defiance had shaken empires. The war was not over. But the universe now knew one truth. The humans would never kneel.